Tamam Tafaragadamu. Last month, the Imperial Order of the Star of Ethiopia, a gold medal, was put up for auction. Belonging to Ras Desta Damto, an Ethiopian patriot and guerrilla leader against the Italian invasion, this medal was reportedly looted by the invading Italian army 2 years after they occupied Ethiopia in 1937. Ras Desta was killed by the Italians shortly after being taken prisoner. This artifact, which must have changed hands several times, resurfaced in an online auction house in Lausanne, generating a public outcry that has been reported by leading global newspapers. Should this medal be returned to its rightful owners? And if so, how? I'm joined by the granddaughters of Ras Desta Damto, Laly and Kokeb, who are now actively working to reclaim what has been lost. A very warm welcome to the program, Laly and Kokeb.
Hello, Tafarra. It's very nice to be on your program. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Let's put this conversation in context. Who are you? How are you related to the emperor?
We are two daughters of Sabla Desta, Princess Sabla Desta, who is the granddaughter of His Imperial Majesty. I'm switching back and forth between America. Our family, we're 5 siblings. We're born from Kassa Walda Mariam, the Jazmach Kassa Walda Mariam, and the Sabla Desta. And then we are the grandchildren of Ras Desta Damto, who is the person that we're speaking about today.
He was a very important figure in the resistance, right? During the Italian occupation.
Yes, yes. I think there were several people, that are well known for their role in the war, and it could be, because he fought long and hard, but also Fitaurari Damto, his father, was in the Battle of Adwa. So, and that's where the Italians were defeated by Emperor Menelik's forces. So he was probably already a thorn in their side before the Italo-Ethiopian War. So I think it's probably part of it is the legacy of whose son he was, but also that he put up a fierce battle in southern Ethiopia and was one of the last ones standing, I think, and continued to be a thorn on their side for a long time, long after the Italians, or the fascists in this case, wanted the war to be over.
So your grandfather was taken prisoner by the Italians, correct?
Yes, yes.
And summarily killed.
Yeah, there are accounts that he was betrayed by Ethiopians that had essentially switched sides and were working for the Italians, and they sort of told about his whereabouts. But then, yeah, he was captured and killed, and they made a very big show. And I think it's, there are lots of photographs of that time, not lots, but it's well documented that they captured him, and they wanted people to know that they killed him. So yes.
And that makes the whole incident a war crime, if you will.
Yeah. So I think what makes it a war crime is he had surrendered. And
yes,
so
he was a prisoner. Yes.
Yeah. So he wasn't killed in the battle. He had, bit by bit, he lost his troops and he was betrayed. So eventually he turned himself in. And so it was the UN War Crimes Commission investigated that. And, they were investigating the war in general, but his murder was one of the important witnesses or proof of what had happened.
So back to the medal. What exactly happened? It was to be a trophy for the Italians, right? What happened?
So the medal, the origins of the medal are that Emperor Menelik, I think even before he was the emperor, had begun awarding the medal to different notable figures who had served their country. And so Ras Desta received this medal. And so when the Italians killed Ras Desta, they, from what we're now learning more and more, because there's not a lot of information, but from what we're learning, they took the medal from him after they executed him.
Yeah. And, you know, we can tell that it was important to him because in a lot of the official photographs of that time, he's got several other medals, but this is certainly one of them. The Star of Ethiopia medal is one that he's proudly displaying. So, you know, he had been on a state visit to the US. This was in return for the United States sending somebody to His Majesty's coronation. So he represented a group and brought them here. And you can see in the photographs, he's very proudly wearing it. And in other official photos as well. So it was certainly something that was very meaningful to him, just even from the photographic evidence. And I do think it was a medal that was given out quite rarely.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it special, right?
Yeah, yeah. It makes it special because here's this man that was killed when his children were very young, 2, 3, maybe 5, 7 years old. They never had a chance to know him. And here's one piece of something that was meaningful to him. Sorry, go ahead.
When did you know about that it was lost as a family?
You know, we never thought during the revolution, our family lost everything, right? So I mean, the lives, of course, was the biggest part of that. But, you know, if you follow that train down, it was everything they owned, our parents and our grandparents owned was lost or confiscated during the time of the Derg. So we never, and I'm sure our mothers and our aunts never really thought about where was Ras Desta's medal, because the assumption would be I'm sure when they first came back from England post-war, they probably cataloged everything of his, but post that time, no one thought about this medal. I mean, we were busy trying to make sure we were counting lives, not belongings. So we didn't know much about this medal one way or the other.
So you never had this conversation as a family when you sat probably with your grandmother, who was a daughter of the emperor, right?
Exactly. No, we never really we never had the discussion about the medal with our grandmother. And this is not just our family, our immediate family, but also our cousins. So our cousins, the children of Luras Mangasha and Lil Taida, our cousins, the children of
Princess Sophie, Rear Admiral Iskandar Desta. He had 13 grandchildren, Ras Desta, which 12 are still alive. So we don't believe any, you know, our conversations were much more about our grandmother being married to him and their time together, but never really about medals.
Yeah, yeah.
Up until last month? Is that safe to
Yeah, until 5 days before the auction.
That was in late November.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what happened?
So,
How did you react to that news?
Well, we got the news through our cousin who saw that this medal was going to be auctioned in a auction house in Switzerland. And it was 5 days before the auction. And so our first reaction was complete panic, because in 5 days, what can you do? We knew that we wanted to do something because it means so much to us. It's our grandfather's medal, first of all. And second of all, it was very much advertised in the auction as it was taken from Ras Desta by an Italian who was on the battlefield when he was executed. So very much promoted the fact that this was looted and stolen during a criminal act. So we said we can't, you can't ignore that. And it was anger. It quickly moved to anger. All of us, all of our my siblings and our cousins saying we have to do something. But again, in 5 days' time, we were panicked. What could we do in 5 days' time?
And what did you do?
So we literally Googled looted African artifacts and found some journalists that had covered that subject and sent a bunch of emails. And thankfully, Catherine Hickley, who writes for the Art newspaper and sometimes for the New York Times, she responded right away and said, yes, I'm interested in this subject. And we had said, are you interested in covering this? Or can you tell us who might be able to help? So she referred us, first she was interested, and second she referred us to Chris Marinello, who is an attorney. He runs Art Recovery International and has been involved in many cases of looted items. And he thankfully also jumped right on it and said, yes, I'll help you figure this out. So that's what we did. Was the first thing was just try to see who could actually approach this auction house and try to stop the auction, and then we could think about step 2.
But you couldn't stop the auction, could you?
We couldn't stop the auction, but we were, because of Catherine and because of Chris helping us, and also family members getting on social media and saying we have to try and stop this auction. So we couldn't stop it, but it went for sale and it didn't sell. Yeah. So it was the visibility and the support from Chris particularly helped us to really put pressure on the auction house so that even though they would not stop the sale, nobody would buy it. So the publicity led to people not wanting to buy it. So
yeah. And it was also, the Ethiopian authorities got, thankfully, Alula Pankhurst, Professor Alula Pankhurst, jumped on the issue too. Somebody that he knew had already written about this auction. We didn't even know he had. And then he put us in contact with the Ethiopian Heritage Authority. And so the Director General there, Professor Avavau, quickly wrote something official. And then also the ambassador,
the Ethiopian ambassador to Switzerland, Ambassador Gaab, was also very supportive in contacting the auction house, contacting the authorities to say this is a looted artifact and the auction shouldn't happen.
And we don't, our gut is that the auction was stopped. We feel like sometimes when these things happen, people put up like a fake bid that's below that no one's going to accept. Usually you can just do it yourself if you have no intention of selling it, and then you say it never sold. And so in our view, that auction was stopped.
Was it stopped? They haven't withdrawn the item yet from their list, right? Do you know?
It's on the auction site, but there's no auction. That auction is closed. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over, which means you're not going to see that again.
Well, we don't know what we call him the possessor because we don't feel like he's the owner of this looted item, but you don't know what that person would do. But for now, the Gallery Numismatic and this auction is over.
And because of the lawyer, Chris Marinello, he put us, he engaged the possessor, as we call it. So the person who was holding the medal. And so the auction, it's no longer there for auction, but it is still with the possessor. So we're discussing with the possessor through the lawyer to try and...
Are you talking about certain Mr. Eagleton or something?
Yes. Philip Eagleton is the person who put the item up for auction.
He owns
it. Right now it's in his possession. That's why we call him the possessor. So, when the conversation started with the auction house and they started to hear from Chris, they said, well, we don't have to put it up for auction. You can buy it directly. And that, was just abhorrent to us. We will never contemplate selling it, purchasing it, paying any money at all for something that they looted from our grandfather. But they sort of said, if you pay us our commission and you pay what he paid for it, you can have it. And so Chris said, nope, this is unacceptable. And then once the auction failed, they put him in touch with Philip Eagleton to try to negotiate on our behalf.
On your behalf. So what do you think is going to happen?
With hopefulness in the new year, in the European New Year, we hope that Philip Eagleton, again, the possessor, because we think the medal is owned by, we know the medal is owned by Ras Dasta. We hope that he will see the value of returning it to Ethiopia, to the National Museum in Ethiopia, where it rightfully belongs for the Ethiopian public to be able to see it, to be able to have it as part of our Ethiopian cultural heritage. So we hope that is what happens, but it's a very complex, difficult process ahead of us. It's very hard to convince someone to give away, as he sees it, something that he feels is his own. So we're trying to negotiate with him and show him the value of returning it to Ethiopia, the rightful place for the medal.
Yeah. And, we've said we'd be happy to celebrate him as the hero of this story instead of the villain. So, ideally, he'll think about that and understand the importance, and he will agree to donate it to the National Museum. As a family, as Ras Dasta's heirs, we've all agreed that that's where we'd like it to be, is in the National Museum. We don't want or need to take ownership of it in any way. Our goal is to have it be in a public place in Ethiopia where people can read about and know about Ras Dasta and their forefathers and the people that that came before us, so that they can reignite the conversation about this history.
Mm-hmm.
There is also another place, the National Palace, which has been renovated.
That's potential.
Too?
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be. It's not. It wasn't in the palace at the time, but that's certainly a possibility. And really anywhere where, especially, we feel like Ethiopia is full of people under 30. And so they don't know the sacrifices that their forefathers made at Adwa, and then later on before in the Italo-Ethiopian War. And so we feel like it's a wonderful time to reignite that conversation, get people engaged in that. They should see the pride that people like Ras Dasta had when they visited the U.S. We joke because he comes here in the 30s, and it's a thank you for coming to Ethiopia, and he brings with him photos of His Majesty and lions' manes, and it's like, you sent us your photo, here's ours. Here's what's important to us. And so they were very, very proudly, you can tell in their dress, in their demeanor, they were very patriotic, but also extremely proud. And so we feel like the young generation has a lot to be proud of that time, and a lot to learn about that period.
Mm-hmm.
So you said earlier that this is a new year, so possibly something new would happen as far as this item is concerned. Do you think anything happened really this year, 2025? Is that a possibility?
In 2025?
As far as restitution is concerned?
I think so because Edmela, Google and social media, thankfully for Google and social media, we were able to find journalists who were interested in the story. We're able to find Chris Marinello, who's working with us pro bono to support this cause. And the social media, the visibility that we can bring forward through social media, I think is going to help us get to the ending that we're all hoping for, which is the medal being returned back to Ethiopia. But again, it will take a lot of work, and we're continuing to promote the story. Promote is maybe the wrong word, but to tell the story, to communicate the story, because it's important not just to us as his grandchildren, but of course to our children as well, but then to the nation as a whole, and also to the world as a whole. There are other artifacts from Africa and other countries that have been looted, and there's a global discourse that needs to happen about fair repatriation of looted items. So we hope to contribute to that conversation.
There have been plenty of cases as far as restitution is concerned, also in Ethiopia. So you have precedents right there.
We do. We feel like in some way, I mean, of course, everybody who's aggrieved feels like theirs is the most egregious. But to actually, it almost is tone deaf in this day and age to say, to be so proudly displaying this comes from the family of an Ethiopian, of a Italian soldier who was present at his capture. That's what stunned us so much, was it's not the medal per se, it's this idea that it's okay to flaunt something so terrible that you had done. And this is, a man that died a very violent death, performing a very noble act. And it's like, how dare you say, somebody can buy this for a profit and use his Wikipedia page. Verbatim, they used his Wikipedia page to promote the item. And so that's why our cousins, us, we couldn't keep quiet. And we hope that more Ethiopians, people all over the world, won't keep quiet and will keep the pressure up.
Let's assume that this is going to be realized sometime soon, hopefully. Would you stop your campaign right there at the end of this restitution, or you keep on fighting for more in the years ahead? There are plenty of Ethiopian antiquities looted, either by the invading Italian forces or otherwise. Would this be cause for a much bigger campaign for you as a family?
That's a challenging question, because I would say yes. I think we've started the conversation, and we need to maintain our engagement in the conversation. And when I say we, it's not just our family, the heirs, but we've sparked a lot of interest, as my sister was saying, from the younger generation of Ethiopians in particular. When you look on social media, the interest that's been expressed, the people who've been touched personally, those are the individuals that we want to engage in this conversation. So we're devoted to making sure that the history of Ethiopia, the history of our family is well understood, and we're committed to that. And this is a part of that. Yes. So we're committed to that.
Yeah. And what I would add is we've learned so much in this process. People have stepped up and said, I'm an expert in this field. One prominent one is James De Lorenzi. He's a professor in New York, and he wrote to Chris, our attorney, and said, I'm an expert in this area. If you need any help, let me know. And so the whole war crimes piece came from him, and he actually provided us the archives from the UN that documented all of that. And then he also said, there was a post-war agreement between Italy and Ethiopia that all heritage items must be returned. So there is, I don't know that anybody's enforced anything, but we have the umbrella under which to reclaim these pieces. And so I think that a broader conversation does need to be had. We're just one small piece of it. But certainly as a nation, we need to try to gather all of what is ours, what is our country's, and bring it back to Ethiopia so that our children and their children can know these things without having to go to a European museum.
Well, what can we say? Good luck on with your efforts, and hopefully we hope to do another show when your prayers are answered. Hopefully again soon. Thank you very much, and good luck again. Really
Wonderful.
coming on my show.
Thank you very much for showing an interest and for having us on your show. And I'd say we look forward to being back with the medal ensconced in the museum in Ethiopia, where we can all celebrate it.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
Okay. Take care now.
Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. It really is.